Weather is a big factor this weekend. A lot of the predictions have been that it's going to be raining tomorrow. I spoke to Alistair Gibson earlier today, and they are predicting rain for tomorrow for the third and fourth free practice session, and then perhaps dry for the qualifying as well as the race. Pedro de la Rosa, Gary, out on circuit here for McLaren Mercedes. Every race we say, I mean, he's done an impeccable job.
Yeah, he's done a great job, and we've got so used to seeing him at the top of the timesheets. But yeah, like you said, the weather is a bit of a problem, so we'll see a lot of the teams running in these two sessions, or will have run in these two sessions to get as much setup time and gather as much data as possible in order to make the tyre choices and so on. So this does put a bit of extra pressure on the teams to get it right from the beginning.
Pedro de la Rosa going through, just trying to find out exactly where he's on the circuit now, going through sector 2.
Yeah, he just started the hairpin now and he's on the way, which is turn 11, through the very long right-hander, which is turn 12, coming up to the famous double left-hander spoon curve. De La Rosa obviously has done a fantastic job for McLaren this year. He's always been very strong, doing a very important job of, as Gary was saying, is sorting out the car, sorting out the balance of the car on new tyres and on low fuel loads.
There we go, Pedro de la Rosa coming up, went through the R130, there we go, 2 seconds up on the second sector split on his own time. Just some news from Japan, and that was announced, I think, also one of the worst kept secrets in Formula One. Toyota announced that they will be using Bridgestone rubber in 2006.
Well, I think Bridgestone have come out and said that it was the rules this year that really hampered them in terms of developing a very good tyre for Ferrari. As we see Toyota in the background there with the...
That's Ricardo Zonta. Ooh, nearly coming together with one of the Williams.
Yeah.
Pitsonia, actually, for Williams, is the first time he's ever driven here, so we'll pick up his times a little bit later. Kimi Räikkönen with 14 minutes into the session, still going pretty well, and then the drama hit him about 5 minutes later on one of the Red Bull Racing cars in front of him, coming up to the first split. And let's see his time just under 4 tenths down, but got quite a lot of traffic there as well. Gary, in terms of overtaking on the circuit, a lot of opportunities?
Well, not really. A lot of fast corners obviously requiring a lot of downforce as well. And then we've seen that makes it very difficult for them to overtake. And you can remember a couple of years ago when Eddie Irvine and Michael Schumacher hatched a plan, and basically Irvine held it up and actually allowed then Michael Schumacher to pass people on the outside. So it is a track that you can hold people back. Probably coming into the chicane before the start-finish straight is the best overtaking place on the circuit.
Yeah, it's a very aerodynamically intensive track, and it's so difficult to decide what is the correct setup. Do you keep a lot of wing for the fast corners, or do you put a bit less wing to go fast down the actual straight? And as Kimi Räikkönen goes through that famous 130R corner, a fantastic corner in Formula One. They have slowed it down a bit in this year, but still I think it takes your breath away. Probably second to the famous Eau Rouge, but as we say, it's this entire circuit probably matches Belgium in terms of driver challenge.
Phenomenal. There we go, just 4 tenths down, made up a good 3 tenths in that final sector, and had he not been held up, I think, by Luizzi in the Red Bull Racing car, I'm sure it would have been a lot quicker. So at that stage of the proceedings, it was the two McLarens, De La Rosa and Räikkönen, and then Red Bull Racing, Williams, BMW for Mark Webber in 4th place. Big news this week as we're watching one of the BAR Hondas, that is Jenson Button, Takuma Sato, and that is that Honda have bought, the remaining shares, 55% that was owned by BAT. BAT will still stay as sponsor next year, but now a full-on Honda team, Gary, and the big chance that they could even bring in a second team.
That's very exciting as well. It's going to be great to see the field, the numbers grow like it. If it is going to happen, I would love to see that happen. I'm sure Sato would also love to see that happen, because he's rumoured to have a drive with that team if it gets off the ground. But also, that buyout by Honda from BAR, it just really shows you why Jenson Button was pushing so hard to stay in the team. And I think this could be what it needs to take the team to the top step of the podium and maybe even a championship now.
Well, Honda are going to be under a lot of pressure, and are under a lot of pressure this weekend, specifically the way that, well, not really Honda, but the way BAR have handled Sato. Sato is the most accomplished Japanese racing driver that's ever raced, has had a podium as well, and I'm trying to think of who the other podium finisher was for Japan. I'll get to that in a second. But I don't think the Japanese fans are going to be too happy with the treatment that he's been given. They still believe this guy should be there. I believe that Sato still has a place in F1.
I think he definitely has a place in F1. He's got a very good Formula 3 career pedigree. I think he's won Marlboro Masters. So in the end, he can drive a racing car fast. A little bit wild when he first came in, and he seemed to have settled down. But he has been overshadowed by Jenson Button. Yeah. He's the last front-running guy that has scored a point in the World Championship thus far.
Fernando Alonso, the world champion for 2005, running a little bit wide there. Gary, the pressure must be off him. And here we go. Before we get there, this was Kimi Raikkonen, 35 minutes actually into the session, and yet another Mercedes-Benz problem. So, I mean, he's going to lose 10 places on the grid. I'm sure he more than likely must probably get pole position tomorrow, but he'll lose 10 places. It means he's going to start in 11th place minimum when it comes to the race on Sunday. And
it depends what strategy. Normally, McLaren will fuel him up very heavy then because he's got to start so far back. So he might even not be in 11th, might be 12th or 13th. And it's so difficult to pass on the circuit with the exception. There's only really one overtaking point on the circuit. So really a difficult situation for him. And it was in the first sector. And the engine just let go. And if you consider how many times it's happened to him in free practice, I think this is the 4th time this year. I think it was France, I think Britain and Italy. And it was quite interesting. Fernando Alonso actually says Kimi Raikkonen is very lucky in the sense that if it had happened a few laps earlier, because this is the same engine they use in Brazil, he would have actually DNF'd Brazil, and they would have been leading the Constructors' World Championship. So I suppose whichever way you look at it, Alonso thinks Raikkonen's lucky, and Raikkonen obviously thinks he's desperately unlucky.
I think some good playing on words from both of the camps. Gary, it's got to enhance the rumour. I mean, the rumour's been there for quite a while about Kimi Raikkonen perhaps moving to Ferrari in 2007. Raikkonen was asked emphatically about it in the Thursday press conference, and basically said, well, the rumours have been there for a long time. Everybody knows that I've only got a contract until the end of next year with McLaren. He didn't emphatically deny it, and he didn't say that it is going to happen. You've got to believe where there's smoke, there's fire.
Absolutely. Rumours like this tend to become a reality at some stage of the game, and it is a big money offer as well on the table for Raikkonen, and there is some sort of appeal for any racing driver to drive for Ferrari. Even when they're not the most competitive team out there, there's always some attraction to beat the team. And let's be honest, if you look at what Ferrari's done over the last couple of years, apart from this year, it's not a bad move for Raikkonen. And these engine failures and mechanical failures that he's had this year, I think has made, has made his decision making a little bit easier in that respect to leave McLaren.
Watching Michael Schumacher. Will Raikkonen be replacing Michael Schumacher in 2007 at Ferrari? We all wait to see. Michael Schumacher, the most successful driver in Formula 1 in Japan. I mean, he's the most successful driver in terms of wins out of anybody. But in Japan, he has won here, I think it's 6 times, starting back in 1995. The most recent was the last year in Japan. So he hasn't spoken up too much of a storm about Ferrari's improvement as we saw in Brazil. They said, listen, with a little bit of luck, maybe they can get a podium.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Michael Schumacher is a very good driver at this circuit. If we remember last year, I think when there was the big issue with the rain, he came out on the Sunday, did the qualifying session, and just went away with the race. He drove fantastically well at the circuit, and I expect him to be up there. Whether he can challenge for a race win is another story. The Ferrari looks to be reasonably balanced in this session. I don't believe that they've used their new tyres yet, so let's see how the Ferrari pans out. But generally, Ferrari has a good track record here.
Michael Schumacher going another lap. 20 minutes left of the session. No real incidents besides Kimi Raikkonen losing his engine with 25 minutes to go in the session, meaning he will get a 10-place penalty for the start of the Japanese Grand Prix. I feel one side of it, you've got to look at it and say, well, we've had some tremendous races this year watching Raikkonen come through the field because of these 10-place penalties. So it does add to the atmosphere there. But I think Gary Raikkonen wants to get one over Montoya. Besides Renault, I think he really wants to get one over Montoya, and it's going to be very difficult from where he is.
It's very difficult, and it's very important for him in his last 2 Grand Prix to actually, as you say, get one over Montoya, because he wants to go into next season really as the number 1 driver in the team. And although there's not a specific designation between the number 1 and number 2 driver in the team, psychologically, it's what he needs to go and fight for the championship next year. But McLaren have really got to work long and hard and fix these reliability issues, because the same thing could happen to them again next year.
with the V8 engines as well. I mean, it's not something that has really shone themselves in glory. Everybody knows it's probably the best package out there, Vic, in terms of its engine and its design, and it's the fastest. And it's got great drivers, but the problem is it's just not reliable. And everyone says, "Oh, McLaren," and you're going, "Well, McLaren, is it going to last?"
Well, I think that's the issue. It's the fastest car out there. It probably is the most fragile if you look at the amount of retirements they've had, engine failures. There's actually rumours doing the round in Formula One at this stage that as Jenson Button goes quickest, very good showing from him. Just remember, he's got an updated Honda engine in the car, and it's a Toyota parking off there.
I think it was Ricardo Zonta.
But there's rumours doing the rounds that the McLaren Mercedes engine is pushing on close to 1,000 horsepower, even in these sort of regulations.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got to think, maybe sacrifice about 50 horsepower just to get that reliability, and it'd probably still be fast enough to win the race. So, you've got to say, well, there's one thing for really pushing the envelope in performance, but to finish first, you must first finish. And I think that's the important thing.
We know that all too well. Ricardo Zonta also been doing a great job. A great Grand Prix, a very, very special Grand Prix for that team, Toyota. Home track Honda, this is their testing track, so Toyota would much prefer to be in Fuji. But I think, Gary, a great tussle that we're going to see in the future between Toyota and Honda. I mean, the two super giants of Japanese motoring.
Yeah, and it's a matter of national pride almost. They've got to be the top manufacturer from the country. And like you say, I think they've got to beat everybody else in the field as well, not only each other. But it is going to develop into a good fight.
Moving away, Ricardo Zonta's car, fortunately, as being the third driver, they managed to get that car going. We'll see pickup highlights in the second session for Ricardo Zonta. And we're getting to our timesheets in a couple of seconds. There was Jacques Villeneuve having a spin at the R130. And let's just get into our times from the first session. And Villeneuve always getting very, very spectacular when it comes to Formula One. So Pedro Della Rosa, the quickest from Ricardo Zonta, half a second. Then of the racing drivers, Button the quickest, and Coulthard doing a great, great job. Montoya, Alonso, Fissi, Sato, Webber, and Clean rubbing out the top 10, 2.6 seconds between them to the 10. As you can see, all Michelin runners. Next year we're going to have Williams on Bridgestone, Toyota on Bridgestone, and it looks like that if there is a third team that comes in, Bridgestone have already offered to supply it with tyres, and that could be a Honda team as well. Massa, Luizzi, Raikkonen, then going all the way down to position number 20, Vic, a man doing his debut in Formula One in terms of on a circuit in a race weekend, and that is Yamamoto. You know the guy from F3000 days?
Yeah, in German Formula 3 actually. I worked with him. He was a Toyota junior driver. We ran Toyota engines. It was a sponsorship deal from the Toyota Motor